Calls meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag. One nation. Indivisible. Here.
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 Turn around.
Here. Right, we'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda or approve the agenda. Do I have a second? Second. First by Ludwig, second by Robinson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Motion. Motion by Howard, do I have a second?
Awesome.
Second by Ludwig, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And meeting open to the public, do we have any? And moving on to old business, City Hall Fire Station site plan.
Thank you. Thank Council. This evening for the updated plans for the City Hall Fire Station. These reflect the conversation that the city had had with Nova County regarding the right-of-way dedication that would take place along Ambassador and the intersection. So with that, I'm going to answer any questions.
Yes, Rob?
I didn't have any questions either.
I have no additional questions, sir. Do we have anything either? We need to,
Where it's just an informative thing.
I think we all seen it in the work session. Moving to new business. Board member request for interim use permit application, first reading ordinance 316, modifying section 10-67-02, parking facility in the zone.
Thank you tonight, Council. Tonight we will be discussing two requests that are related to the dental clinic on Bridge Street. The first request is a code amendment, section 10-67-02, and the second is a related interim use permit. So these involve the site in red here, the dental clinic, and then the two properties just to the east. So just some background, the dental clinic had a site plan for a addition onto the rear of the building and parking lot expansion. It was approved in June of 2022. That parking lot expansion included 8 additional stalls that would be used for that shared. Even with the addition, the dental site is still under today. And so the dentist has been working to find other opportunities to add some additional parking in that area. All 3 of the parcels that we're discussing this evening are guided for commercial use of the city's comprehensive plan. They're also all zoned B1 central business. So the dental office use and the related parking mechanism is something that's consistent with the city's comp plan as well as with the plan. The dentist is proposing to purchase those 2 lots that were highlighted in yellow earlier slide. And today those are used as outdoor storage, which is something that's non-conforming in the B1 district. So the dentist is proposing to purchase those 2 lots and then extend the parking lot to cover those 2. There would not be a lot combination as part of this, so those properties would still stay safe. And that means that the parking lot would actually be the principal use of that site. And the city does allow parking facilities as a principal use. They are permitted with standards in the B1 district. One of the standards are that. And so the applicant tonight is requesting to amend the code to allow private parking facilities as a principal use in the B1 district. This would be something that would be done with an interim use permit. And so if the city council tonight is supportive of the code amendment, then the applicant is also requesting to create an interim use permit in order to create that private facility entrance to. The image on the screen there shows the existing conditions of this area. Those 2 lots to the east are currently paved and they're used for outdoor storage. That pavement and the storage will all be removed as part of this project and then be extended through there. Both of those lots are fairly small. They're 3,500 square feet, 6,500 square feet. They're small to the point where city staff feels that they would not be able to develop on their own and adequately have the building and parking access that you need. And so if this were to ever turn into something other than parking in the future, it would likely be part of encompasses more of that area. And so the applicant tonight is proposing to redesign that parking area. Again, it would be brought up to code standards for stripping things like that. And the expansion of that parking lot would create 15 additional spaces, as well as add second access off of Glover Village. Planning Commission reviewed the code amendment and the IUP at their May meeting. We did discuss a little bit about the access to Glover. Again, because this is something that this is along Ridge Street, so the county does get to come. We waited for the county's comments to come through. They did let us know that they didn't have any concerns. So what is being shown on the plans is what is, there wouldn't be any further changes. And so the planning commission did unanimously recommend approval of both the code amendment and the P. So staff has prepared draft documents for approval and suggested motions on your screen. Answer questions.
I do not have any questions.
Well, sir, any questions here? There. I would just say that area gets cleaned up. Questions either. But this time of entertaining motion to approve first reading for 316, section 106702. No.
I'll make that motion.
Power makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Makes a second. All in favor? All for. Roll call order.
Mayor Pro Tem Little.
Aye.
Council members Robinson,
Aye. Aye.
Here. Next, we will entertain a motion to approve resolution 2023-28 approving the private parking facility IUP interview one. Do I have a motion?
I'll second.
Motion by Hedwig, second by Bauer. Resolution, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're moving on to B, code revision B1, use to make sign standards, signage. First reading, ordinance 317, approving amendments to section 1044.0, business and industrial district zoning code as presented by.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. For you tonight, I'm just going to amendments and cleanup items for you. These pertain to the B1 district and signage. And these are coming out of the city's recent review of the city hall station site plan. That is really the first major development that we've seen come in Bridge Street since the code was updated and since the creation of the Bridge Street design. And through that review process, staff did identify a few provisions that we needed to clarify to make sure that those are clear and that staff is interpreting them the way that they were meant to be interpreted, and then intending to make sure that they get to the intent of the credits themselves. And so the requested amendments related to the B1 district include some tweaks to the uses, site dimensions, and design standards. Then for signage, we'll mainly be change to walls. So for the B1 district, the uses, there are a couple this evening. The first is that there are two uses which currently exist, which allow a mix of residential and non-residential uses. So these are dwelling, mixed use, and retail residential street. And while they have different names, they really are intended to be virtually similar. But as you can see, they allow differently within the district. So the dwelling for mixed use is permitted in standards. The retail and residential above is just straight. And so staff is proposing an amendment to really clarify this terminology and how it. So we would be adding cross references to make sure that people understand that those uses are the same. And then we would propose to allow them both as permitted in standards. And those standards would be the ones that are currently use. We will be making a few tweaks to those standards as well, primarily focusing on the title and then specifying that food and beverage uses are permitted as a commercial component of that use. The second use that we are proposing to amend tonight is commercial center. This is a type of use where two or more separate businesses are sharing access, circulation, and pedestrian areas. These are uses that already exist in the B1 district today. And as staff is looking at the properties that are in the district, it's not necessarily very has a lot of space. And so being able to efficiently use that space and potentially clean areas seems to be appropriate in that district. And so staff is proposing to allow commercial centers as permitted uses in the B1 district. So this is the updated table. You'll see the commercial center is permitted, and then we have that cross-reference in residential to make sure that they understand, and that's now permitted standards. Site dimensions, there's one change here that staff is proposing to make tonight. The intent of the B1 district, as it's outlined, is really to create this pedestrian friendly downtown atmosphere. One of the best ways to do that is to make sure that the buildings are located closer to Bridge Street specifically. And so that was then translated into the code. It was a setback for those street facing sides of the building, and that's a setback of 0 to 5 feet. So obviously there's a pretty small way through there. And what we found out in the city plan is that it isn't necessarily practical when you have sites that cover an entire city block. Really, the intent there is to bring it up to Bridge Street and any kind of surrounding corners. It's not so much for the actual year for that. So anyway, staff is proposing to add a footnote to table 104404, which would allow for some flexibility for particular sites, specifically sites that have 3 or more frontages. It gives some wiggle room there to allow that setback to be increased where it's appropriate. And there are a few changes for the design standards. Just as a reminder, the B1 district is the only district in the city that actually has district-wide design standards. And again, this is going back to those guidelines and really making sure that this is a nice area, well-designed, high classes of materials, some articulation and designs. And the design standards focuses on parking location. And as staff was reviewing again the city plans, we found that this could be more clear. So currently, parking lots are prohibited in the front. And staff is proposing to change that to say that they are prohibited between Bridge Street and the front of any. So allowing it to be on the side or in the rear, but not between the building and the street. And then the last design standard for B1 is building frontage. So right now, the building frontage requirement reads that no less than 70% of the frontage on Bridge Street shall be used for a commercial purpose. It's not only their purpose needs. And so staff would like to really clarify that and add some language in there so that you understand what we're trying to get. Really, the intent here is that that area of Bridge Street should be used for something that's publicly accessible, non-residential, something that's active that the public can associate with or go in. So it could be, the storefront, retailer service that you may think of. It also may be the community room that's publicly available, the lobby of a business, something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be just a store. The idea is that the public can access it. And then there are a few updates to signage here. There is a few terms and references that needed to be updated, just to be clear that we were referencing the numbers. So you'll see those changes in your packet. But the main item that I wanted to discuss was the wall signage. Staff is proposing to allow one street frontage in the non-residential districts of the city. This is very similar to the city's current system freestanding signs. This is what's allowed for freestanding signs today. But we would like to apply that to signs. Again, buildings that are, since we've seen in this, it really is. So with that, planning commission did review these amendments at their May meeting. There wasn't any comments from the public, really wasn't any comments or questions from the commissioners either. They did unanimously recommend this approval of those amendments. So the suggested motions are on the screen. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll start with Kevin. Do you have any?
No, I really don't. It's just good proper housekeeping, bring things in line for the future. So I appreciate the hard work you've done so far. That's a lot of boilerplate to read through and verify. So that's all.
Thank you.
I'll just like the one.
And Rob.
I just had a question about, so the dentist that's going to remodel his parking lot in the front, has parking spaces. And then we turn around and are clarifying some discrepancies about putting our facade closer to the street. Are we cutting off our leg despite our hand?
The new parking side.
So, well, technically, the new parking lot is a principal use, and so it would be between the building and the street. Because there's a building. But your point of extending it, I understand. That is something that we looked at a year ago. We approved the site plan. And the issue was the site was under, so they're not compliant in the number of spaces. They're also not compliant with the fact that the parking lot is closer to the street. So it's kind of a which one gives there. And we have to make kinds of decisions to allow it to be extended.
The future buildings built on spot would be critical.
Yeah, new buildings would need to be built to the street.
Yeah, I think over time it'll come to fruition where it looks better.
Yeah.
I like the idea of going with the St. Francis forward plan. I have no more questions. We're gonna go one after another here with 3 different ordinances. So this time I'd entertain a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 317, approving the amendments to section 1044.00, business and industrial districts of the zoning code as presented by staff. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, sir.
Councilmember Robinson makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Rudnick makes a second, and we'll do roll call.
Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve first reading ordinance 318, approving amendments of section 106104 dwelling, apartment mixed use and zoning code as presented by staff?
I will make that motion.
Councilmember Rudnick makes that motion. Do I have a second? Councilmember Bauer makes a second, and a roll call again.
Mayor Pro Tem Bauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Scarpelli. Aye. Robinson.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 319, approving the amendments to section 1091.00, signed with the zoning code as presented. Councilmember Bauer makes a motion. Second.
Second.
Councilmember Robinson makes a second. Roll call.
Councilmembers Bauer.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move on to the 2024 to 2028 financial.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council residents and staff. Before you tonight is the 2024 to 2028 financial plan for the city of St. Francis. The planning process started many months ago with departments heads being asked to look forward to the future to plan for what the needs of the department. This included any personnel additions and any major projects coming up. Street projects were reviewed for the time frame of completion, and these projects were broken down between streets, stormwater, water, and sewer. Capital equipment was adjusted for inflation. Cash flow projections were analyzed to determine if funding was needed to fund some of these projects. And all of this was then compiled to determine the tax levy to accommodate these requests. Staff had multiple work sessions with council to determine their on forward plans. Want to stress that this note or this plan is a guide to the city. This is not setting anything. We have to, each year, the council will have to determine the budget for the next year, and this is a living, breathing document. We'll be updating it as things change in the future. So this table shows the tax levies for the years of the plan. It does call for an increase in taxes to fund all that's included in this plan. The tax levy is broken down between the general levy and the debt service levies. The debt service levies are determined by bond covenants when issued. The city has two existing bonds right now. The 2015 GO improvement bond will be done in 2024. And then the 2017 capital equipment bond, which is paying for the police public works building now, is scheduled to be on there for several more years. We also are proposing to fund the new City Hall fire station with a bond this year that will be presented to council, will probably be sold in July. The general levy is broken down to the operating levy, the capital equipment, building improvement, parks, and streets improvement. Once the total levy is determined, there are some adjustments to be made before calculating that tax rate. Fiscal disparities amount that the city receives is deducted from the total levy to get us a spreadable levy. Then the tax capacity is adjusted by TIF if the city doesn't have any right now. Contributions to fiscal disparities, we have to put money into fiscal disparities and any joint value that the city may have. This then gives us the net tax capacity. The tax is then determined by dividing that spreadable levy by the net tax capacity. The slide shows the history of the tax rate since 2014, all the way to the estimation of the 2028 tax rates. As you can see, the tax rate in 2014 was about 60%, and this plan estimates the 2028 tax rate to be approaching that 60% again. But market values and construction that we have all can make this vary greatly. So this slide, I tried to show what this means to people's property taxes. On the top, it shows what a residential or commercial property paid in 2023, and then what they're estimated to pay in the future years. Now, this is based on their property value staying the same. On the bottom, I'm showing you the increase that that property would have in their taxes each year. In this plan, we do have new employees requested in a few departments. In 2024, a part-time admin assistant is in for the city hall and a full-time assistant fire chief. In 2026, a mechanic is requested. And in 2028, a full-time fire inspector and a full-time street and parks worker is requested. Future year requests are shown here just because we had that discussion and I wanted to show you where they all end up from your feedback. Another thing that was determined from this plan was to raise stormwater fees. The stormwater fees started because of the 2015 plan. They started in 2016. We have not raised them since that date. We are proposing to raise them $1 a month each year for 5 years, thus getting it up to $10 a month in 2028, which would be $120 per year And this funds the stormwater portion of any of our street projects. We need that to pay for those. We also are adding a $10 late fee. We have several people that don't pay that fee by June 1st. And we go through a lot of extra steps to try and get them to pay. And then, of course, we always will special assess in the fall. So that's a real quick overview of all the plans into that. I certainly can answer any questions.
I think we will. Here.
This is the question. We've covered this very well in several work sessions. Our plan, hopefully we can make this work. Walking through it.
Rob?
It is a flexible plan. Our residents can see the numbers from the general levy to 2024 through 2028. It's a large spending cap, so residents, if you want to come speak at the city council meetings about where dollars are being spent, this is your time to come to our meetings, talk about what you do and don't want to pay for. That's all I can say. You can see on the bottom that your tax increases will be anywhere from 11 to almost 13% over the next couple of years. So I don't really have too much about the document at this time because it is flexible. But I asked the residents to come out and either show your support or talk to the city council. Thanks.
I said again, that this is a fluid document. You have to have some projections. You can't believe government just go blindly and year to year, like, what do we need, how much we need, where we're gonna get it. We need to look ahead. This was gonna be a 10-year out. We decided on a 5-year, which is more prudent. So that makes sense. Again, it can change. We're anticipating some growth, but we're not calculating some commercial growth that could take place. In the past, we've made some changes with some rates and whatnot with anticipated growth. This is a little more conservative, which I like. Again, I look at the levy numbers too, the percentages, and it makes sure your hair stays up a little bit. But again, this is not stamping it, passing it, and here we go. It's the projected numbers. Again, house values could change. Usually there's a lead lag of property values from 2 to 3 years, as we all know in the past. So, So some growth is anticipated commercially as well as some residential. Also, we're not raising just to raise, we're raising to accommodate needs. The stormwater fee, like Darcy said, has been changed for many, many years. It still is an unmandated, mandated, but unfunded state requirement for us to provide these services for stormwater. The money has to come from somewhere. It doesn't just, come out of the thin air. The rain runoff and the requirements and stuff that they put for EPA as far as the stormwater. These things have to be met, and they are checked each city by the state that we're pursuing this stuff. Some cities are not charging anything because they don't have the infrastructure we have. So that's the difference from, say, a neighboring community that doesn't charge anything, or they absorb it, put it in their general budget, you're paying for it, and they know it or not. So at least we're putting it out there. It's front and center, so you can see exactly what it's for, and there's a fund exactly for that purpose. So, but again, I, as the board here, takes this very seriously, especially again when we look at the numbers. In the long term, it was going to be a 10-year out, not a 5-year. So again, this is can change year to year. Things should change. We can see prosperity and adjust accordingly. We can see some downturn and we'll have to adjust accordingly. Wants and needs, just because you want it doesn't mean we're going to get it. But we have to look ahead and see that or go stagnant and get be going backwards like some other communities that haven't planned as we are trying to plan them. So I appreciate the judge's work on it, and the board has been sad, and we hash this out for hours and hours, and sometimes got a little heated as far as what we need and what we got to do. And But we have a plan, we're gonna look ahead to that plan and try and fulfill the need that is needed, so. That's all.
I would piggyback on what everybody else said too. I think the main thing is, given it's a fluid document, we have to look at it, we're gonna relook at it every 2 years. Possibly when the budget comes up, obviously, we have to talk about. The main thing is looking at our needs, looking at our growth, and what we can support to accommodate our needs too. So it's kind of scary when you look at it, and Kevin said too, we did. Staff did a great job too, by the way, thank you for that. The hours they spend and what they think they may need in the future, and all that is speculative.
Yes, Mayor, just, accepted my motion. Was a guiding document.
We will entertain a motion to accept the financial plan of the guiding document for the city as presented by staff. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Benedict makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second there.
Second by Councilmember Robinson. Favor? Aye. Opposed? Aye. Nay. Robinson. So, three approved, one against, motion carries. And we will move on to meeting open to the public. I can't see anybody that's here. Report, fire.
Mayor Pro Tem Council, for your review, this is the fire department monthly comparison report for the month of April. Although it may seem like it's about 6 months ago, it's only a few back, as time certainly is flying this summer. For the month of April, we did have a response time of 7 minutes and 56 seconds on the month. And we did do a total of 70 calls for service for the month of April. We're starting to see those kind of warm temperature run volumes settle in April, May, and then through June. Staffing was relatively stable with 6.2 average firefighters responding calls for service. Our fire units run distribution was again pretty similar, 53 EMS range to 17 fire units. Variances were a little bit steady for the month as well. If you'll notice on this graph, we are no longer tracking COVID calls. So that feels like again a marathon we just got through, but with the federal emergency expiring, we're no longer tracking it. So, but we did see 6 ambulance response times for 20, so we're seeing a little bit of that slide back yet. And for the month of April, we had 2 initial fire inspections with 0 re-inspections for a total of 2 site visits. And if you look back to 2021, this is our 2-year cycle of fire inspections. So we're kind of replicating where we were in 2021 back in 2023. We did that kind of intentionally because we're also doing our spring open house in April. You'll start to see that kick back up next year as that 2-year cycle kicks back into the 2022. So with that, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Good report, but I would like for you to explain the EMS rights and how they're dispatched out from dispatch.
Yep.
So that the other councils can understand what we did years ago when we didn't respond to every sniffle.
Okay. Sure.
And explain to the other council that there are varying levels of how dispatch calls out a fire.
Correct.
For an EMS call, and why those are so much higher now.
Yep.
Versus when they were before.
Yep.
So the other council can understand.
So probably 2016, 2017, the way that dispatch delineates between EMS calls is there's high priority and not high priority. So high priority is difficulty breathing, shortness of breath, seizures, strokes, falls, anything that they would consider a significant trauma. Everything else kind of gets bucketed into what they would consider a non-priority or priority. So you have high acuity and acuity. Back in 2018, we looked at the numbers between the high acuity calls and the non-high acuity calls, we'll call them. We only got dispatched to 18 calls throughout the year. So there's kind of a relief valve with non-priority calls or acuity calls, where if the response time from the ambulance was greater than 12 minutes, they would dispatch fire. That was a line of protocol, just so they could make sure that there was a responder going. So we made the decision based on that low number of calls that we were getting dispatched to just absorb that entire bucket. The other thought process that came into that is the fire department is the highest trained and the cheapest labor unit in the city for EMS response. That also frees up burden in the police department. So in years past, if somebody had a stomach ache, which initially could be considered a low acuity call, but certainly could turn into a high acuity call. And the only person responding to that event was a police officer, and then there was a robbery in town. Well, your police officer just can't believe that call, right? Where the fire department is kind of multifaceted training. We have that ability, plus we have typically throw a little bit more resources at a call. And then it could free up the police department to respond to any other high acuity event that came into place that the fire department can't assist on. This was a conversation that happened in the city administration and the police department as we made that transition. Certainly it paid dividends when COVID came into place, as we're trying to reduce exposures to as many employees as we could. And we felt that that model has not only provided a good return on value, we also believe it's provided a good return on patient. So we have stayed with that.
Okay. But doesn't that, do we need a full-time assistant chief? And how does a chief and an assistant chief help with reducing volume calls for the annual salary of over $100,000?
Well, I don't believe the assistant fire chief is going to get paid an annual salary of over $1,000, but I would have to check with Darcy to see what that's great. As far as, we have to be careful to not just assign one value to a position, right? Whether it's an assistant chief, a fire chief, a full-time captain, although call response is a significant portion of anybody's job capacity within a day-to-day business, I think one of the things that is very important to understand is we just don't respond to calls, right? We do code enforcement, we do plan review, we do pub ed, we do training, we have to report all of those, we do quality assurance, we do maintenance. All of those things are part of any other business, probably very similar to a lot of activities that go on at the correctional facility. All of those happen internally within the fire department too. So it's not just call response, although our call response has continued to increase, likely will continue to increase. That's not the only component of having a full-time assistant chief.
Okay. I don't have any.
How does this dispatch knows 12 minutes of ambulance response? But they know that. So when the call gets sent to dispatch, if it's a medical call, oftentimes they transfer that call to a line of dispatch. A line of dispatch has emergency medical dispatchers. They take a specialized training course to understand how that call can get categorized one way or another. That feedback goes back to the dispatcher. But then the line of dispatcher can look at their screen due to vehicle locating and determine where the is coming from and what type of response time that they require from their starting point. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the dispatcher can see where all the screen, and when they put in the route, they assign the route, it gives them an ETA. And obviously that's based on traffic day, things of that nature. But that's the guideline.
How many departments have the skill set that you trained your team to have?
I would say we're the highest trained EMS related fire in the county, with the exception of Coon Rapids. The only intervention that Coon Rapids is providing that we're not is Coon Rapids has a variance to provide IPs.
So the ambulance response time is say 18 minutes for another community. They don't have plan B, which would be we have plan B, the A team.
Correct.
So that's what they got to deal with.
And most other cities around us have already made this change. Oak Grove is responding to all calls as well. So this was something that fire departments have been doing for many years. In my opinion, it was the right decision for us to do so in consultation with our partners within the city. And that's how we got to this point.
Okay. And I had the luxury to sit on the board with you for the Bethel discussion as well as now the discussions. And not in defense of the position of assistant chief, but you put in pretty frank terms that if right now you're doing a 55 to 60 hour week, which you probably do, if you were to step away, who steps in? There is no step in. The company you run has gotten big enough where I think we need that. Not, I think, it showed the need is there. It's showing. Just like the police chief, he has a chance to step away. He has a whole team of 12 to step in do the same job. So with growth comes expansion, with expansion comes cost. And we talked about this before, and again, I can understand Rob's concern, and the public's concern still is, we have we have a large budget for police, we have a modest budget for fire, but this is what the citizens pay for. Police, fire, roads, and bridges. And priority in this town, it seems to be police and fire is a priority, so just for the record, I know we all support it in some fashion or not. But as far as the need growth, it's growth, it's gonna be there, especially if now that, which is gonna be the next question, comes aboard, and then Bethel wasn't as big a piece of this pie, not concerned, but now it is, so. I can certainly appreciate from a business standpoint that, again, if you push it to 60 to 62 hours, your mental health, your physical health, your family life, the chief can tell you how nice it is to have, the police chief can tell you how nice it is to have a team behind you. Again, if we were 4,500 people or 2,500 people, those needs wouldn't be there, but we're pushing 8,000 plus, and the needs are coming here, so again, we'll do it prudently, we'll do responsibly. I mean, you ask for X, you're gonna get, you're gonna get half an X for starters, which is better than nothing, but that's what we can afford at this time, so. And then to follow my last question, and now that anything publicly you can talk about, with 6 months left in their contract, how things going, what's happening?
We just finished up going through our capital planning for the year. Next on the agenda is the actual budget. I can tell you, just as part of their capital planning, they have set aside funds to continue the contract.
Okay,
As we refine the actual operational budget here in the next 30 days, I'll have higher level of clarity.
and you know what the duration of this new contract will be?
I don't.
Was there anything, you don't have to say, but did they give you inklings of what they're interested in?
Not at this point. We've had internal conversations with the firefighters. They certainly have an interest in continuing the contract.
Good.
Discussions with the administrator, and the mayor, who's interested in continuing the contract there. I think as we kind of go through the operational budget, certainly there'll be some alterations. The example that I would give you is when we started this initiative 3 years ago, we did city administrator. They know the city administrator, but part of our contract was for kind of administrative related duties. So whether that was Joe Coleman or Marcy or somebody's assistants, kind of the administrative piece, they now have that person in place. So I would imagine that there will be some adjustments and corrections to compensate for that. What that looks like, I don't have an answer for you, but I'll let that be open solution here very soon.
And then that brings another question. You have an assistant chief that will be leaving at the end of the year for his own advancement in his career. Do you have somebody in the wings that will, as the same caliber and or skill set to fill those shoes?
We have a lot of potential internally. One of the things that we've done over the last 6 years is continue to make an investment in our staff. We're actually a little bit short staffed today because we have some folks taking another state certification exam. So I think we have a lot of potential internally. Depending on where this position slots in, will certainly be a factor, but I think we have some talent ability internally.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Sarah.
Just want to thank you and your staff for the great job they do at the park and all. Just overall, you continue to show up on calls. And this all takes time. So I just really appreciate everybody.
I don't have any questions. I think good report as usual. I think with the full-time fire chief thing and part of the financial plan, I think I'd like to see us try to go part-time. Somebody to agree with Kevin that this is what we pay for as far as I think the city, as a government, I think our job is to provide the services necessary at the lowest cost possible. Streets, police, fire, in our case, water to Apple City, things like that. I think we get into some of these other things, that's where I'm gonna be a stickler when it comes to charities, because I feel like if you want their, you should go door to door and ask them, but that's. A great report, thank you. And the councilman report, so, Kevin.
Thank you, sir. Just want to take grand kudos to the Chamber of Commerce for this past weekend, Pioneer Day. The support of the members who support the Chamber of Commerce, the board themselves, which Michelle Anderson's brought a lot of excitement and exuberance to to which was a group that was just trying to keep it going and, but a lot more vitalization or revitalized at this time. All the volunteers and our city staff, which I worked alongside side by side with some of them this weekend, including Colette and some of the public works guys and emptying trash cans and doing what you gotta do. So, and the citizens, most of all for their support. Saturday was a big deal, big turnout. To the supporters, again, the citizens who came out and put their money where their mouths were and enjoyed the fireworks and the rides and the petting zoo and the baseball players and softball players came out. Again, they supported in big ways. And to the naysayers, which social media is a couple people popped up. I said, hey, come on, we'll see you next year then, if you can do better. Lots of notes were taken, pages of notes were taken to tweak it and make it better for next year and the good, the bad. And with anything this big, there's gonna be some wrinkles. We could have had 2 beer tents in town at the Legion and at the bowling alley. And that was it. That's not what happened. We had fireworks. We had lots of stuff. So those who don't want to, pitch in, just keep standing on the sidelines and keep bitching about it. And those who do want to participate, they came out and showed us that they're bringing their families out and had fun and spent their hard-earned money and actually made it quite an event. So thank you.
Sarah?
I think of me, I did attend St. Francis Fun Night. We had a great presence with our police and fire department. It was chilly, but the kids still really enjoyed spring fire. So that was great. And then on the 21st, I did attend St. Francis and Master Golf Tournament. I was actually very busy with that just last few weeks. I want to again be asked to be part of the interviews to get them ready for the judges, so like they do that. On your days, we have sometime coronation. Would like to congratulate Miss St. Francis, Melissa and Addie, and our little Mrs. Burke.
I had the grandkids for most of Pioneer, and it was an amazing parade. It did come straight to our neighborhood. I think next year, knowing if the route stays the same, more neighbors will confront other neighbors and friends. They'll come out and sit on the property. I think that was a big discussion around our neighborhood, was if someone was gonna get offended by people sitting on their yard and stuff. But it was a pretty good turnout. There was a lot of heat, but there were a lot of people on the route, and I think it was great. The turnout for, participants was really good. I really enjoyed it. The park was really nice. There was a lot of different booths and stuff like that. So I'm just hoping that this thing's gonna grow again next year and kind of come out of COVID, swinging. So come out and participate, like Robinson said. Help out your community and let's grow this thing even bigger. So.
My council report is I enjoyed Pioneer Day. Did get to watch the fireworks inside, but getting it up. Parade came right by. Girlfriend's house there. Made all like abandoned candy, which is terrible. Figure. But I think it was a great show altogether. Thank you, staff, for everything you guys did participate as well. Before I transition to a message from Steve, I would ask John quick. Just for an update. Like I said, we actually 6 weeks ago, and we're going to give you 8 weeks as to where we are. This BA discussion.
We were supposed to meet June 1st, but there was some scheduling conflicts. So actually we'll be meeting on Wednesday. So I'll have more information after that.
Cool. And then compliment as well that on social media that you have been doing very cool with that too. A message from Steve, I did speak to him. He wanted to make sure that I told staff that they did a great job at Pioneer Days. He appreciates you. He did. And he wanted to also mention about the building. We're waiting to get bids to get actual numbers. So when we do get actual numbers, If it's too high or if it's not, then you can look, actually look towards moving forward. It's things we have to wait for. That's all I have. So at this time, okay, motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Councilmember Rodriguez makes that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Bauer makes a second. All in favor?
Sorry,